morning, Tri-Cities. It's 9 o'clock on Friday, so it's time for Coffee with Karl. I'm Karl Dye from TriDeck, and today kicks off our economic outlook, which we do every year. We're going to go to a virtual format this year as we did last year. And today we have our regional economy and labor market outlook. So it's my pleasure to introduce Tiffany Scott, who's the CEO of Benton-Franklin Workforce Development Council. Good morning, Tiffany.
Good morning, Karl.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And Aisha Suljic is the regional economist for Washington State Employment Security Department. Good morning, Aisha.
Good morning, Karl.
So we'll get right into it. Those of you joining us on Zoom, as we go through the presentations today, and we'll have some questions at the end. So if you'd like to ask a question to either of our presenters, you can use the question and answer feature at the bottom. If you're on social media, you can ask your questions through the comment section, and we'll do our best to get to everyone's questions. So we'll kick off with our ritualistic mug presentation. Today, I chose a mug that we got last year from Energy Northwest, great local supplier, very key to our energy part of our economy for sure. And they got a pretty cool logo, powering, and I can't read backwards, so I know I got to turn around to read it. Powering our clean energy future. Energy Northwest operates all four forms of non-carbon emitting electrical generation on behalf of their partners and customers within kind of their framework. And so we're extremely excited about Energy Northwest and the future, obviously advanced reactors and the future of nuclear, as well as all the other forms that Energy Northwest works. So I thought that was a good one to kick off because obviously energy is such a huge part of our economy. We'll probably get into some of those, both labor and economics parts as we go through today. So let's go to Tiffany first. Tiffany, do you have a mug to share, or mug's coffee story to share with us? I
do. So this morning, here's the mug. It is actually handcrafted by Cascadia Stonework USA.
Oh,
and
wow.
My mom actually purchased this mug for me when we were out shopping in Lincoln City. So she actually got one that is almost identical. Well, not super identical because they're handcrafted, but they favor each other. And I use this mug every day just to have my basic cup of joe with a little bit of creamer in it. And, it just always reminds me of, those fun family vacations. Lincoln City's always kind of been one of those spots for us. It's away from the Tri-Cities, but not so far away that you can't do it in a long weekend. And for me, I really enjoy that serenity of being close to the ocean, put your toes in the sand, and just building those fun, positive memories with family members. And yeah, I know it's just a mug, but it kind of means a lot to me. So thanks for asking, Karl, and I was happy to share my little story.
That's awesome. That's a really good one. I think that's a great thing about the Tri-Cities is, we're so close to the coast, the mountains. I mean, we're literally kind of right in the middle and the best weather in the whole world, right? Like we're living in a great place. Aisha, how about you? Do you have a mug or beverage or coffee story that you want to share with us this morning?
I do. I have actually glass.
Dust Devils. Yeah.
I don't know if you can see
nice.
that.
Yeah.
Dust Devils. Probably about 11 years ago, my husband played a tournament for a golf tournament for kids with disabilities. And one of the major sponsors and promoters were Dust Devils. And we got 2 glasses, and I thought it was super cool, especially because of their mascot. But at that time, I didn't know much about Dust Devils and why they're here and why they're called Dust Devils. And then over the years I did find out, and it's a super cool story, and I'm very excited to have a team like that here in Tri-Cities and being one of those major training areas for Major League Baseball in the nation. So it's really exciting, and I just wanted to share something like that. I actually enjoy drinking from this glass all the time.
That's great. Well, when you get weather like we've had the last couple of days, you start to think about, spring and summer sports like baseball. That I know our family for the first time last year, and it was actually on Mother's Day. My wife's name's Tiffany also, and she chose for a Mother's Day present to actually go to a Dust Devils game. And we had a good time at the ballpark. Such a beautiful facility and a great team. And it's always fun to go out to the ball game, literally. So that's a great plug for the Dust Devils.
Exciting summer to come, yeah.
For sure. We're looking forward to it. Well, we're going to start off with Tiffany, and I think, Tiffany, you have some slides prepared for us
I
to
do.
talk about our regional labor market. So we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Karl.
You bet.
So like Karl mentioned, I'm Tiffany Scott, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Benton-Franklin Workforce Development Council. And thanks for having me at this 23rd annual TriCity Economic Outlook. And congrats to TriDec. I'm 23 years. That's impressive. Next slide. So at the Benton-Franklin Workforce Development Council, we are responsible for the public workforce system in both Benton and Franklin counties, and that includes the leadership and oversight of WorkSource Columbia Basin and TriCity Futures. TriCity Futures is a center that opened up a few years ago. It's a comprehensive center for youth and young adults that are seeking education, work experience, and employment. And we really focus on contributing to the economic growth of our community by investing in resources that are either federal, state, local, or private funds that come through our agency. And we're very conscientious in allocating those resources to community-based organizations that can help improve our local workforce with getting individual skills and education, and help meet that qualified talent need of our employers. So the Benton-Franklin Workforce Development Council has actually been in business for 38 years. And over the course of the 38 years, I believe our mission vision has only been revamped twice until I was seated as CEO. We did a strategic board retreat, and about 4 years ago, developed this new mission and vision that really closely aligns with where we're at, and as well as where we're heading as an organization. So our mission is to promote a prosperous community by providing a progressive workforce system. And then we do have the vision to contribute to the prosperity of our community, and we do that by elevating the human potential. Next slide, please. So here are some statistics that I put together, and it's important to note that although we're looking back on 2021, in order for me to accumulate the data, I do want to mention that we operate in more of a quarterly system that doesn't align with a calendar year. We actually go on what we call a program year. So as I talk about Q1, that's actually a start date of July 1st. And then our program year does end the end of June. So the months are a little bit off, but we do run in a quarterly system. Here are some highlights of our workforce system. Wanted to share that the businesses served has grown from Q1 to Q4. We started out with 233 businesses needing services. Q2 had 335, then 589 in Q3, and then all the way up to 608 in Q4. So as providing the services to our business community, it is good that we are growing in that aspect. As we know, with the current climate, businesses are in need of services more now than ever. And what this does is, can demonstrate to the community that we are focused on business services and growing in that space. And we hope to continue that growth into 2022. There's a light gray shaded capturing of data that shows the services that are provided to those businesses. And then we also jump into those job seekers that we see, because we do have, that responsibility of meshing the talent of the workforce to fill the gaps and needs of employers. So that growth actually did transpire as well in the job seeker focus, from a 1,769 served in Q1, jumping into Q4, we do see 3,436. And important to note as well is that over the course of this time frame, from July 1st until the end of June, we did see a transition from a 100% virtual work environment for our team members into a in-person service delivery system again. So hopefully when I'm asked back next year, I'll be able to just report these numbers in the growth capacity with more individuals being served face-to-face. Next slide, please. We do have TriCity Futures, and it's a collaborative effort with Educational Service District 123. Here on this slide is captured data just specific to our out-of-school youth program that is delivered under the roof of TriCity Futures. And out-of-school youth has an interesting age range. It goes from age 16 to age 24. So if you know any youth that are in needs of services, including a GED, please send them down to TriCity Futures because we would be happy to serve them. In Q1, we did see 70 individuals transitioning to Q4 to 39. So there was some ebb and flow over the past program year for youth being served at TC Futures by our program. And with that, we did have some identification of employment opportunities that were rendered, as well as post-secondary education opportunities, from 5 jumping up to 34 in Q4. So in leading the efforts of our public workforce system, it's good to see when those numbers do increase. And we have some strong leaders in our system that are making this happen with their competent teams. So GED, is something that is an opportunity that many youth sometimes don't know about. And we don't want to do this in any way outside of the support of our traditional school districts. But one thing I want to mention is that we have open doors through ESD 123. So if you do know a youth that is at a traditional K through 12 in the traditional K through 12 system that possibly could be referred from their counselor over to TC Futures, we would be very happy to work with them to obtain their GED. And the first year we were operating, we weren't an accredited GED facility, but now we are. So just another opportunity for individuals to get services. Next slide, please. When we look back on what happened in our local labor market, the top occupations that jump out, several registered nurses came into the facility that we helped place, as well as looking at labor and freight occupations, several sales representatives, managers, supervisors. Then we do have the heavy and tractor truck drivers, as well as the customer service representatives and maintenance. This does tend to shift from year to year, but knowing what was going on in our economy, these are the individuals that had the most placement rates into positions that we served. And then crosswalking over to the licenses and certifications, we do see a very diverse group of individuals in our community that seek services, and they might need help paying for a driver's license. We do have program services that can be allocated to help with something like a generic license, like a driver's license, as well as getting that certification for like a first aid CPR. And we could also go all the way into individual training accounts where we pay for individuals to get their CDL Class A, or even if there's an individual that wants to finish out their teaching certificate or degree through one of our local colleges. Our workforce system can meet with individuals to see how we can help in that regard. Next slide, please. So we have learned a lot of lessons over the past year, and one of the main focuses was definitely looking at what we can do to pivot to more of a virtual offering. So here are a few highlights of things that were done that we are going to continue on, because we do feel like they're a great menu service to offer to our community. One is the development of a job form, which is simply an application where individuals that want to utilize resources can fill out a form, and then that department that best suits them in our service delivery system can reach back out to them. Brazen was definitely used, hoping there are some employers out there that have experienced working with our business services unit at WorkSource Columbia Basin to utilize Brazen for your job fair needs and your hiring needs, and we will continue that. Then we also have LinkedIn Learning, and this is a great opportunity for individuals that want to learn in a self-paced environment. We do have licenses still available, no charge, if you are an employer and want to train up some of your incumbent workers, or if you are just a job seeker out there that wants to refresh on any aspect of your potential scope of work. LinkedIn Learning curriculum can help with that. And then, of course, social media, as we meet here today, doing our business virtually, it's here to stay. And we've had to grow in that space, and we'll continue to do so. Next slide, please. One major responsibility that is very important at the Workforce Development Council is the analysis of our occupations and demand in our community. So I wanted to just kind of do a brief summary so people participating today can kind of understand what this is. The link to the Employment Security Department WAC website, and this is the homepage that you'll see. If you do go to the download the current list, you're going to find information for Benton and Franklin counties. So once a year, the Employment Security Department Labor Market and Economic Analysis team produces a list of occupations for local workforce development boards. And we, the Workforce Development Council, are one of 12 local workforce development boards across the state. So we have the opportunity to review, facilitate, and then record and submit the recommendations for that list based on local demands. And it is our responsibility as the convener of the regional workforce system to make sure that we collaborate with our system partners, provide recommendations to the occupations in demand list that reflect the most current and accurate state of the occupations in Benton and Franklin counties. And then what we do is we convene that committee, and we're responsible for the final recommendations to the Labor Market Economic Analysis team. And my friend Aisha, who will be presenting next, is actually part of that team. What the OID list does is it really does ensure that the projections of the current economic state in our area are reflective accurately. And those recommendations are analyzed from committee members, our board members, as system partners or community-based organizations that want to make a recommendation. And the methodology is based on the occupational projections, the current supply demand data, as well as the specific level of job growth in that sector. And it's important to note that the unsuppressed occupations with employment in the base year that are consistent under 50 or more jobs are not included in this analysis. So what does this information provide? Go ahead and go to the next slide. You're able to look, and this is from the workforce professional perspective, from the job seeker perspective, from the business perspective, you're able to look and glean what specific occupations are doing in our local area. This fiscal manager position, you can see there's a green arrow pointing up. It's definitely in demand this year. And when we want to train individuals and place individuals in the sector, that's a very sustainable living wage. And it does help with economic growth as well as individuals making that family sustainable wage job, like I mentioned. So you can pull up any specific occupation in the Tri-Cities, and you're able to determine if this is in demand, if it's balanced. You'll see two gray areas going in each direction, or if it's in decline, you'll see an arrow pointing down. So this data and this list is something that we utilize, as mentioned, on a consistent basis to just make sure that we are looking towards the future state. Next slide, please. I want to share briefly our commitment to standards and what we consider quality. And it's important because we operate primarily on taxpayers' dollars. So we want to be good stewards of that here at the Benton-Franklin Workforce Development Council. Our current budget as of today is $4.7 million, and we're allocating those resources into our partnerships at the different facilities. And once we do that, the partners work hard to place job seekers into self-sufficient wage jobs. And really proud to say that throughout our partnership, individuals coming into our brick and mortar at this time, they're average making $28.71 an hour. And, it's definitely well above minimum wage. So if individuals that are trying to go this job search alone, know that there is supports and things that can get them to where they need to be. We do focus on integrity and compliance. It's really important that that we're transparent, and happy to report that when Clifton Larson Allen was in our office, we did have a successful audit, as well as no findings in our state monitoring. Some best practices: we're very, very strong in the performance reporting aspect of our work. And if you look across all of our program measures of all of our programs, this goes from placement into employment, job retention, and wages. We're at an 80% performance rate, which is definitely a success. We've had national dislocated worker grants that have been stood up in our local community this past year and a half to respond to the COVID pandemic. So we are helping additional individuals in our community through those federal resources. And then we also have a community development block grant that has been given to us by the Department of Commerce, and it does help with the food supports and the things that are needed in our community for individuals that are facing food insecurity. I did want to mention quickly that we are a leader amongst our peers. The South Central Workforce Development Council was recently in the Tri-Cities to see what we're doing, how we're operating, and look at us as a best practice. So it's always nice to share the great work that it's being done. As we look ahead into, well, we're already into mid-February already, but when we're looking at the focus of our work, we do need to be cognizant of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we have stood up a committee that will focus on services to the Black, Indigenous people of color, as well as Asian American Pacific Islanders, because these marginalized populations have been underserved in the Tri-Cities, and we want to make sure that they are welcomed and part of our workforce. Here in April, we anticipate executing a grant for $280,489 to serve economic security for all customers. Those are customers in Franklin County that are unfortunately below the poverty line. So we have these resources to help with job placement. And kind of hot off the presses is that we competed with over 60 other companies in a request for a proposal. And the Department of Commerce did award us $500,000 to serve outreach to historically disadvantaged communities. And that's going to probably put ink to that contract, like I said, in April. And we're excited because this has a marketing component that we're able to outreach under the name we have called this Together We Rise. So please keep your eyes and ears open for information on that program. Next slide, please. So we have a very well-versed group of subject matter experts serving both job seekers and employers. But for the purpose of today, I wanted to highlight our industry experts that are serving local businesses. And this is at no cost to you. We have kind of parceled out the work by sector. You'll see here that we have our healthcare, entry-level, government, manufacturing, construction, transportation and warehousing, agriculture, and food processing. And all of these services that are rendered are, unique to each individual employer. And if you're not seeing your specific business that needs, that fits under any of these identified sectors, feel free to use that phone number, 734-5953, or reach out via the WorkSource Columbia Basin Employers at esd.wa.gov email. This team is ramping up as well. We all know that filling the workforce that is gonna be a team effort, not just at WorkSource or TC Futures, but the community at large is getting a skilled workforce over at Amazon, other employers like Dairy Gold, to make sure that we meet the needs of those new employers. Next slide, please. So there's power in numbers sometimes. So I wanted to communicate that we as a Workforce Development Council, we are one of 12 local areas, as mentioned before. So I do have 11 colleagues, and we're part of the Washington State Workforce Association. Unfortunately, our funding was decreased across the state by 20% last year. The federal government did decrease our allocations into the local area. And what we have seen so far, guidance from Department of Labor, is that we could be experiencing another 10% decrease. And this is at a time when we need resources into our local community to help support our employers. So what we're doing is advocating in the form of a legislative ask to the state legislature for a $50 million state workforce initiative fund. We have met with our colleagues to the south in Oregon who have been successful in getting $100 million from their state ledge. So we're maturing as an organization. This is our first time playing in this field. Hope to get some traction this session, but we know it's a very short session. So I'm going to keep this ask on the table even moving forward. The focus of these resources would be to help employers drive, earn, and learn opportunities to re-career individuals. We want to increase our local service capacity, as well as invest in wraparound supports. And just highlighting the one that is the top of everyone's mind is the housing. We want to make sure that our workforce does have affordable housing. Next slide, please. So really quickly, wanted to share, if you do need to talk with myself or any of my amazingly talented team members, here's our information, and would love if you would follow us on Facebook, as well as connect with us on LinkedIn. And our two facilities, TriCity Futures, which is located on Rio Grande Avenue, and WorkSource Columbia Basin on Kellogg Street is available to serve, and you can reach out electronically via those links as well. Next slide, please. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that this work is not done in a siloed fashion. It is a collaborative, integrated effort from multiple partners. And I wanted to acknowledge WorkSource Columbia Basin, our partnership codified in a memorandum of understanding does include the Washington State Employment Security Department. Big shout out to Aisha Suljic. She is actually employed by Employment Security Department, and her expertise is utilized day in and day out to get us to where we are and where we're going. So just thank you, Aisha, for being in the trenches with us and doing this work. Career Path Services, Columbia Basin College, Department of Labor and Industries, Opportunities Industrialization Center, Washington, better known as OIC, and the Department of Social and Health Services all live under the umbrella at WorkSource. Then at TC Futures, our main partner there, Educational Service District 123, and then our service provider for the out-of-school youth program, Career Path Services. And of course, big thank you to all of my bosses. I'm staffed to a board, and we are quasi-governmental, so we do have county commissioners that are involved at the board level as well. So I did want to thank Benton County Commissioner Will McKay, Franklin County Commissioner Clint Didier, Board Chair Todd Samuel, and our 21-member board, amazing group of individuals that volunteer. We do have a business majority, but we do have labor and public facilities represented as well. And one of those individuals is Mr. Karl Dye. So thank you, Karl, for what you do month to month and getting through those meetings with us. And we do appreciate your insight. It's definitely of value.
Thanks, Tiffany.
And I think that wraps up my deck for today. So thank you.
Well, that was great. Great information and data. Let's go to Aisha, and then we'll have some questions at the end. I know I wrote down a couple questions I want to follow back up with you on, but thanks, Tiffany.
Yeah.
Aisha, we'll go
Hi,
into
Karl.
your slides. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me
Morning.
here with you. It's always a pleasure to participate in this great regional event. We learned a lot what happened over the year, and then we learned actually what's going to happen in the upcoming year. And I'm always myself excited to hear all the industries coming on board and organizations like Tiffany's talking about the projects and efforts that we are doing to support our community to move forward and prosper as we are continuously expanding and growing not only in population but in economic activities and labor force. So today, again, my name is Aisha Suljic, Regional Labor Economist with Employment Security Department. There is 6 of us around the state, 5 more, basically serving all the 12 workforce development councils around the state. We are great partners with all the workforce development councils, all economic development organizations, counties, officials, population at large too, trying to spread out information that's publicly available to you to make the right decisions when it's most needed. So to summarize a little bit and go from top to our region, I just want to give you, what's going on statewide in short 2 summary slides. As of December, which is the latest numbers for both state and the region, we have about 3.9 people in labor force statewide. Out of that, 95.5% of that, the individuals living in the state of Washington are employed, about 4.5% unemployment rate. Over the year, from December 2020 to December 2021, this labor force statewide only increased by 122,000 individuals. That's about 3.1% growth over the year. But at the same time, the number of individuals who are actively engaged in the labor force, but they are unemployed and looking for employment, decreased by 63,000 individuals to 176 currently engaged. And when I say currently engaged, I'm usually referring to those individuals who are 60 years or older and actively looking for employment for past 4 weeks. So if we have individuals who are discouraged and they're taking a break for different reasons, we don't count them in these numbers because they are not actively looking to find out employment. So, and that's a key. One of the keys for us is also to look at how do we encourage these individuals to get engaged in the labor force. And one of the major encouragement for labor force is actually well-being or growth of jobs in the state and locally. And the growth on the next slide, growth of jobs statewide. And we are referring to total non-farm employment, which excludes agricultural activities. And I'll mention a few numbers about agriculture as well, because it is a big portion of our labor force that's being active in that segment as well. So the encouragement and confidence the labor force gains, it comes from the stability of industries and availability of jobs in the state of Washington. And this availability of jobs in the state of Washington, December 2021, was about 3.45 million jobs. Growth over the year, 178. And you can see right away the growth in jobs was greater than the growth in total labor force. Total labor force, 122,000 growth over the year, while a total number of jobs in the state of Washington grew 178,000 a year. So we have a greater change, but at the same time, the number of current, I pulled this off of our work source, VAW.com, and it's a great resource that comes through work source centers. Pulled this actively looking at the current job listings, 250,000 active listings for recruitment of our labor force in state of Washington in last week. So to take that into perspective, that's 1.5 jobs for every current job seeker looking for a job in the state of Washington. When you take that into account, you can say that yes, we do have a very tight labor market, and there's more jobs per job seeker than there's a job seekers looking for a job at the moment. Well, our region and around the state on the next slide shows a different picture from county to county. And every county, again, depends on its base core and core industries and core activities where majority of their labor force is engaged. And usually, if you take some of the counties, labor force engagement is about 75% within those counties. And, 25 are commuting out. And there's a lot more commute if you're in Snohomish, King County, Thurston, Pierce counties. There's a lot more cross-county commutes in those areas, but nonetheless, we are looking at the core industry base of these counties that contributes to resident active engagement in labor force a lot more than other surrounding counties in the region. So as of December, I would not say this number. Back in 2010, it was the opposite. Like you look Eastern Washington, we were in 9-10% unemployment rates. And then when we look at Western Washington, especially I-5 corridor, we have to exclude the coastal area. If you look at that area, they were already in like 4% unemployment rates. But this time around, it's such a good mix. And first time to say that lowest unemployment in the state is actually in Eastern Washington. A certain county, 2.7% unemployment rate, and it's been beating this unemployment rate since a recession hit us in April of 2020. And it kept going down, and there's more labor force engagement, and they're finding those jobs. Our region, as you can see, Benton-Franklin counties has a lot more labor force that's attached to the agricultural activities, and our numbers increased. But in November of this year, our labor unemployment rate for the labor force dropped to below 4%, and that was one of the lowest ever we have seen on the record. And our record for a region goes back to 1990, and that's 30-year span of information that we had the lowest unemployment rate of 3.8% for the region. Right now, of course, because of the winter and the cold weather, we are seeing more people coming in out of the employment engagement into unemployment and still looking for jobs. Looking on the next slide, I'm going to take it down a little bit to our region. So we know what happens statewide. We know how tight labor market is, how many jobs are coming on board statewide. When we look at statewide, there's multiple industries contributing to that growth. Government, for example, professional technical services, retail, trade, leisure hospitality, of course, had a lot of ground to make up, so it's coming back on board. But taking it down to regional level, as of December 2021, we have over 146,000 individuals in labor force. About 95.5%, again, it's identical to the state, are engaged in the labor market, actually employed. That leaves us a 4.5% unemployment rate for both counties in December 2021. But regional labor force did increase over the year by 5,400 individuals. We did have a slight decrease, as I mentioned, due to seasonal factors from November to December. About 1,800 individuals exited labor force. Only about 1/3 of those individuals entered unemployment, which means if they exited labor force, they might be on the standby for their employment activities while the weather warms up. And we should be starting to see them in the market as soon as the weather picks up, which is about right now. It's really nice outside, and you can see a lot of momentum and movement to catch up and get the farming activities ready. So with that said, we in April of last year, in 2020, had a very significant number of individuals who entered unemployment, who were unemployed looking for jobs. And then right now we are down to 6,600 individuals. So with this 6,600 individuals in the labor force, and they're actively looking for jobs, we have still a great supply of our labor force when we look at into the next slide for the employment activities for our region. So the trend for the labor unemployment rate, as you can see here, over the past 30 years, unprecedented times in 2020, but still unprecedented recovery over the past 2 years in regards of labor force and employment activities. 4.5% unemployment rate in December for Kennewick metro area, Washington State at 4.2, and state national 4.5, sorry, and a national 3.9% unemployment rate. We are expecting that this gonna get even tighter market, and unemployment rates might stay around this time, around this level, or continue to inch down a little bit at a time down towards the mid 3.5, 3.6 in many different areas. But for us, seasonality is going to play a big role on unemployment rate and how many people are engaged at each month in these job activities. On the next slide is civilian labor force. And this civilian labor force, which I mentioned, 146,000 individuals are engaged currently in labor force, employed or unemployed. And this shows you that over the past 30 years, we, along with population growth, our labor force has grown as well. And the closures that happened in 2020, two of the closures and reopening, really slowed down the expansion of the labor force and put in a little bit of cautiousness in labor force confidence towards engagement. Not only because they can't find the jobs, their confidence in finding a job is a little bit better, but just getting out there and getting exposure due to health concerns and things like that is keeping them a little bit out. But overall, as I mentioned earlier, that over 5,000 individuals entering over the year into the labor market is very significant, and it's slightly better than national recovery and statewide, but we still have good way to make progress in this activity. I looked at labor force participation, which is really, really good measurement of how many people are actively engaged. And both statewide, nationally, and regional economies, labor force participation rate was recovering and growing since 2013 to 2020. In 2020, all of the areas got hit and about 2.5% decrease in labor force participation rates across the board. And then right now, statewide, as of December, we don't have monthly for regional, but statewide, 63.1% labor force participation rate across the board. So we still have about 2.5% to make up to pre-recession of 65.5% for engagement. This engagement means a lot. When I mentioned 3.9 million individuals in labor force for the state, I'm going to take it down a little bit and say that 6.5 million individuals are 16 years and older in the state. That leaves us about 2.6 million individuals who are not engaged in the labor force, and we can actually engage them. I would take out those individuals who are 65 and older and say, enjoy your retirement. And that's going to leave us about 1.7 million individuals who can be attracted into the labor market statewide. And these numbers can be brought down to the local level. And of course, our local level labor force participation was a little bit higher always because of our labor force structure. But that engagement, again, that ratios of engagement can certainly be played out, and we can support organizations like Tiffany's to encourage individuals to come into the labor market. Here's the help we can offer you, and this is how we can help you, but we need your skills, knowledge, abilities for the jobs coming on board. So for the next couple slides, I'm going to try to review those skills needed. What are the industries coming on board and adding jobs? And what is our labor market here? I forgot at the state level to mention 3.45 million jobs are in non-farm, but around 100,000 jobs are in agricultural natural resources. Out of that segment, we have to add additional 26,000 jobs in H2A activities. So these numbers keep going up because H2A jobs that come into our region especially are not covered under unemployment insurance benefits. And because they're not covered, they're not included in my numbers on the beautiful graphs that I share with you. But with this, these few numbers I'm going to share with you, I'm going to show you that our region plays a big role at the state level. 118,000 jobs as of December 2021, located from all businesses here in two-county region. Growth over 6,100 jobs over the year, and currently over 4,540 active jobs in the area. 6,600 people looking for jobs, 4,540,000 jobs open for recruitment. So we have a little bit more labor force locally than the statewide. So we have more individuals to apply for every job that we have in the area. And that's coming from different industries. Let's take a look at the next slide. Our total non-farm employment has been expanding rapidly since 1990, but post-recession, a great recession, we stabilized and expanded much more. We are fully recovered post-COVID pandemic recession, and this recovery is not a full percentage for state and nation. Statewide is about 97% recovery. Nationally, about 95% recovery, but it's pretty close. But we are officially 100% recovered from a COVID pandemic. Some of the industries contributing to this growth and expansion, we can look at on the next slide. I have 3 slides that's going to highlight some major industries in our region. Some of the industries contributing to this growth and expansion and adding jobs regionally include transportation, warehousing, utilities, which expanded over the year, and it's been expanding for the past 30 years, but it provides about 7,000 jobs. I took our wholesale and retail trade out of this cluster, and it is 100% recovery right now. And we are expecting this industry to continue expanding, growing as more clusters around agriculture, food manufacturing, transportation, warehousing comes on board. As our organizations, economic organizations in community work hard to bring in new businesses or help businesses expand. Manufacturing is very important base for us. 68% of this manufacturing is still in food manufacturing and services. 101% recovery for this one, and growth over the year of 6.5% of 500 jobs. Government was very hard hit, but it reopened, added over 1,500 jobs over the year, 8.6% growth, and 100% recovery as of now. I did not expect the 100% recovery in November of last year, but I'm very thankful that happened, and more services are needed to support our educating our youth for future labor force supply. On the next slide, we do have the industries: professional, business services, leisure hospitality, and retail trade. In the green line, you're going to see leisure hospitality. Leisure hospitality lost a significant number of jobs, as you can see here, during pandemic, but it is at 96% recovery rate. Over 11,800 jobs are in this industry. Growth over the year, 31.1%, or added actual 2,800 jobs. So good progress movement, and expecting by June or July of this year, they should be over 100% recovery in this industry. The second one, and to hurry up in time, would be retail trade. Retail trade was a little bit hit, but picked up really a good and fast recovery. And last year, I mentioned we had a significant number of jobs added to this retail trade, and just over the year, actually shows a little decrease of the jobs as stores are navigating the change of online orders and pickups and things like that. But overall, retail trade, 107% growth over the time, over the past 2 years. So we are fully recovered and expanding jobs. Professional technical services or professional business services is really an industry that we are just looking for stability. We are not looking for great expansion. It does encompass a large number of jobs in Hanford cluster, and it's added about 400 jobs over the year, but trend-wise, it's not looking like we're going to be expanding this industry much more than just stabilizing and riding the wave for at least a couple more years in this spectrum. Next two industries, and I believe that's going to be the conclusion. Next two industries could not fit with the other industries, so I had to separate them. There's so many jobs that we have added to these two industries, and that they have expanded so much and so fast over the past 30 years that none of the graphs would look good if I added these two industries on that graph. And you understand, Karl, it's like, yeah, they just go from normal to like, they're not even on the graph anymore. Yeah. So look at the healthcare industry. Healthcare industry, over 19,000 jobs. Growth, as you can see, it's fivefold. It went from 100% indexed in 1991 to 519% index. That's significant. That's about 8.1% growth for the past 20 years in healthcare industry a year. And when you look around the area, it just keeps going and adding. What is it? What's the demand? Again, population growth. And the other industry that really expanded over the years has been construction. Of course, we had hard hit during Great Recession, but then during this pandemic and the tightness of both commercial and residential real estate really contributed to expansion of jobs in construction. It went from 100 to 429. That's about 10% growth over the past 20 years in construction activities. Both of these industries, it's not driven by this expansion in this industry or this expansion of that industry, it's actually driven by the expansion of population, where 307,000 people are living here with average annual growth since 2010 over 2.2%, compared to the statewide growth is 1.7% a year. National is 1% a year. So we are doubling statewide and national growth in regards to population. And of course, with that population expansion, we are contributing a great deal to our industries that are adding jobs to supply those services to our local population. Looking forward, hopefully we do recover all the jobs we lost in certain industries like leisure hospitality this year, and we stabilize some of the industries and move forward. But more so, we do encourage more people to get engaged into the labor market and supply their skills for all the jobs that are coming on board in local community. And yes, if you need help, go out to community members and organizations like WorkSource Center and Workforce Development Councils and educational system and find support. To say this, thank you again, Karl. I'm always excited. Take a look at these two slides. It's just for more movement, but I don't want to take in more time from your questions and comments.
Thanks, Aisha. And yeah, no, and thank you for this great information. Both you and Tiffany really informs us of both what's been going on in the local labor market and then what's been going on with Tiffany with the Workforce Development Council and your partners' activities. But yeah, let's have a couple questions and then we'll wrap up. This is really great. We could probably talk and share information for 2 or 3 hours. There's so much going on. Because as an economic outlook, obviously from the numbers, our economy is booming, like you said, and the growth, the population growth, Aisha, that we've had has been ongoing. Tiffany, I had a question for you related to some of your business services. So if there's businesses that might be joining us today or watching later on YouTube or Facebook, and they're struggling to find employees, I know you gave some contact information, but what would it look like for a business to come in and say, hey, I need, I'm growing and I need 5, manufacturing people, like at an entry level or something. Can you give us just a brief snapshot of what that would look like and what kind of services you guys offer for an employer?
Excellent question, Karl. So basically, that employer that you gave the example of for a smaller hiring of 5 individuals, they would be connected to a subject matter expert, a business services professional, one of those listed on that sheet, or potentially some other support staff that would be able to analyze the title of those positions and also help build the most accurate job description possible, maybe even crosswalking that occupational and demand list and encouraging, those resources of benefits and a competitive salary. And that's the thing, these days employers have to be competitive with the salaries in order to not just get, but retain their workforce. We're fortunate that WorkSource WA does help with not just posting on the statewide website, but it actually facilitates into Monster. So anytime that you, a business, were to work with any of our business services representatives, your information would be cast even to a wider net into the Monster hiring system. So then there's also that caveat of troubleshooting. What happens if a week or 2 goes by and there's no interest? So let's tailor the specific job posting a little bit. And then if you're an employer that's part of a greater unfortunate challenge in our community, we can actually construct a job fair that's specific to you and your peers so that we could get the talent to the table and make those introductions. And yeah, it's very, it can be as individualized as it need be, or it can be more of a group service to multiple employers. The strong message that we want everyone to know is that we are here to help. We've been here, we'll continue to utilize your taxpayer resources and put that back into our community to help meet your needs.
That's great. That's a great snapshot of what that looks like. And we'll always, obviously, anybody we hear about, we always send them your way to try to get, get some of those great services that you guys offer. Aisha, these numbers, and I think you talked about it, like these are, we've never seen this low of unemployment before in our region. And then I'm just intrigued by the people that are in, that here in the community and they're not engaging in the workforce. But I'm thinking in the future, because we're all in this together. Tiffany, you talked about Amazon Dairygold, some of the projects that we've all worked on and are coming online. We know that there's that, but then, our labor need, our need for talent runs all the way up into, our employers that have the highest education requirements, from Pacific Northwest National Lab, engineering skills with some of the Hanford cleanup. And so I'm just thinking about maybe ways that we can all work together to reach out into that community. Obviously, they're not going to have a PhD where they might qualify for some of those other jobs, but entry level at some of the industries that we talked about that are really looking for good employees. I think has there been any communities that you know of that have come up with like a community-wide initiative? Like, how do we reach into, I know we all see statistics like young people that just, choose not to enter the labor market. Like they didn't go on to something post-secondary in, an apprenticeship or education. They're not in the workforce. Anything that you've read about that maybe we could think about from a community basis? Like, hey, let's encourage these folks to get involved, get some of the skills and training that Tiffany has and her partners, and let's get them in the labor force. Any examples of that you could think of?
Yeah, we're talking about great numbers. 307,000 people live in locally. Close to 230,000 are 16 years and older. But that leaves a significant number of kids.
Yeah.
Right. So they are in schools. They are in high schools, and that it's critical for us to reach out. Some of the most successful communities that I've come across are those communities that reach out in early stages of education, elementary school. Then high school becomes a way not only to educate them, but to way to find where they want to be with their jobs. If they want to focus on great academics, they're going to focus in high school on those great academics and move on to 4-year education after that. If they want to stay with trade jobs, high school can focus them through to those jobs. So the outreach for many communities are successful in engaging these individuals, because you have a 4-year time period to get them into momentum that I have to just go to school, right? Momentum, the high school is a way to finding out who you want to be after you graduate and where you want to move next. And I think we're doing some of that right now, and there's a lot of great effort through, even right now, through partnership, through Benton-Franklin Workforce Development Council partnerships, through high school partnerships, giving those alternative high schools options, things like that. But we need a lot more of that engagement to be even more successful. And then showing, it's always on academics, right? But the showing value of every job that's available there. Yeah. You're graduating high school or you're still in high school, finding that job, earning that experience matters. So the experience for the future is big deal. Is experience on campus at college more important than experience in industry? For example, is it more important to bring all the students from across the state in Pullman, for example, study 4 years, and here we're gonna spit you out over here and just like go run with the sharks, right?
Right.
And they don't know what to do. Well, if these individuals lived all around the state and they access education to what they need for the jobs, and they worked within those industries that they are interested in, they will be way more prepared and ready to engage in the labor market than right now. But hopefully we'll move forward. The engagement is very critical and the most successful for any community. That's what Germany does.
Yeah.
Elementary school is when they start deciding what they want to do for the future. They still can change their mind at the end of the high school, but still, if they say, well, I'm not a physicist, I don't want to be this, I don't want to be that, but I'm good with hands, I can do this. They create pathways where individuals can experience and find out what they like to do. And we have a lot of those entry-level jobs, they're good paying jobs that prosper into management leadership jobs, even becoming your own CEO.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, I wanted to thank both of you. We're running a little bit long, so instead of closing statements, I'll just make sure that we invite you back so that we can continue our discussion. And then obviously not on Coffee with Karl, but just in meetings that we all work on together. I really look forward, and we at the TriTech team and all of our partners look forward to working with you guys and your organizations to try to come up with these solutions. Because I think our fear is that, with these, with all of our statistics going this way and relating to our workforce, is we want to make sure that we address the shortages that we have collectively as a community so that we don't miss out on future opportunities. Because obviously growth is something that we're experiencing a lot of. We've always had a lot of growth. I think your charts are great, Aisha. We just got to keep it going for our community and work together like TriCities has a long history of doing in the past. So Tiffany, thank you for your time. And Aisha, thank you for your time. We really appreciate you guys kicking off our economic outlook and look forward to working with both of you in this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.